Hello and
Hello.
welcome back to the transfer show here on Anfield Index. I'm Trev Downey, joined of course by Dave Davis, who is like Santa bearing gifts. That much information has he crammed into his bulging sack. There, I've given him an image there for the evening, Dave.
Wow. Pay-per-view as well, eh?
Yeah. Listen, we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Let's get straight to it. The Salah story is all anyone wants to talk about. We're doing this evening, and there have been press conferences, and paid pundits will be offering their tuppence worth. It's hard to care about any of that stuff. I'm just more interested in the breakdown of what actually happened here. And we have this really weird situation where on my Twitter timeline, half of the people are hammering Arne Slot for dropping Mo Salah, and the other half are hammering the club for allowing the man I'm now calling Pound Shop Brosnan to make that decision and take it out of Arne Slot's hands. So the confusion is wild, but it does seem to be that the official version is that it's our director of football, right, Mr. Brosnan, who has made the call. I feel very hinky about that, but fill us in on where we're at exactly in the timeline of events, because people will have half versions.
Yeah, and I'm still even seeing a bit of false reporting on it, or people sort of, I don't reading it wrong, whatever you want to call it. So just to be clear, match finishes, Salah is raging, walks through sort of the mix zone area. Paul Gorse from the Echo clearly sees this and said, can we have 2 minutes? He rejects him 99 times out of 100, but says, nah, let me get a shower and I'll come back out. And everyone's like, hey up. And obviously because of what's happened, and we're going to talk about it. So he comes out, he does the interview. And obviously there's a little bit of like, when's the, embargo on this, manage it, blah, blah, blah. And Norwegian TV, ignore this. All I'm going to say is there's some Norwegian people who maybe lost certain credentials at Anfield going forward, but blow open a can of worms on that. So obviously everyone's seen the serialization of quotes about, I've got no relationship with Arne Slot. Someone wants me out, but mentions Arne Slot separately. I've been made a scapegoat. All the things that we've seen and serialized. We won't go over old ground on that. So it comes to this morning, doesn't it, Trev? And everyone's thinking like, we got open training just before midday and they're flying out to Milan. Like, well, what is going to happen here? Because we're all maybe thinking there's going to be a statement on Sunday, but, what are we going to do? And Fabrice Hawkins, the journalist, drops an exclusive at about, I say 11-ish, give or take, saying, he's not going to be in the squad. So everyone's like, because he was in AXA earlier in the day, what's going to happen? Like, is he banned? How are they going to do it? But then all of a sudden, the open training starts, and lo and behold, who's all smiles and all joys? It's good old Mo, and, smiling with the players and all that. And you start to think like, hold on, is something going on a little bit? Like, because this looks at, a happy Salah and all this. Where's it going to go? But Ornstein drops it, doesn't it, to say no, he's not going to be with the squad, but a final decision still has to be made. We'll come back to that. Then you get Romano dropping it later as well. And it's that wording that you talked about. Liverpool management and Arne Slot together in deciding for Mo Salah to be out for short period after strong quotes. Now, digging into this, Trev, as much as you can, if this was Slot versus Salah, well, it's not really, because Arne Slot is not the one to have made this decision, is he? It's Richard Hughes that ultimately, as all the reports, has made the call, which just seems a little baffling that our director of football is making these types of calls over the head coach. I mean, there's a strangeness to that to talk about. The second bit as well, I mean, there's some nonsense in the reporting. This is not disrespectful to journalists, because they've got to brief what they're told. They're not going to lie about what they've been told. I get that in element. But David Ornstein in his report saying, no, Liverpool want this, to be resolved. It's not disciplinary issues. It's just, or action. It's just a little bit of a separation. It's like a Monty Python sketch, isn't it? He's been a very naughty boy, so he's just going to sit out this Milan, and come back and all that. But it's just utterly bizarre a little bit, the way it's been done. That they've obviously, the journos have got that Richard Hughes is ultimately the one that's made the decision, more than Arne Slot, in that regard. And now we're just seeing, like, is he coming back for the next one? Are we just expecting him to reintegrate? I mean, how typical Liverpool that Mo Salah's not flying and Chiesa and Gakpo aren't in trainings. We're taking 3 less attackers for this trip to Milan in the first place as well. But I genuinely don't know what the hell has led it to this point. And I mean, David Lynch said on Media Matters when we did it today, if he's not in training today, you probably think he's gone, and then he is in training, but now he's suspended, so you've still got question marks. We're going to have to, we danced around this, we can be honest a bit, haven't we, over the last few weeks, of saying, just keep an eye on Salah to sell. We've said it in all the transfers, and to be honest, we sounded like Tory politicians trying to dance around it a little bit, because it was like, we haven't got the go-ahead from, the people who've given it us to give the full stuff. But the general bit was that all the info we were given was Salah was expected to go 2026. That's what was leading towards. But as you know, Trev, all our briefings were summer 2026. That was going to be the big sale. That was going to be like massive wages off the book, a big Saudi golden goose, to really invest and re-go again. I mean, mate, there's absolutely zero surprise now if Mo Salah goes in January, is there? Whatever, the legend is my favourite player, but there is zero surprise now if Mo Salah goes in Jan.
The fella himself has teed it up, Dave. The whole story about his parents and the tickets for Brighton, and it's a very sad state of affairs. And I was very interested to hear you chatting to David Lynch earlier on. I thought, to be fair to David, I thought he handled the topic really well in terms of being fair about it. I would say that some of the other bigger outlets and non-independent outlets who often break the big stories, I'm thinking Paul Joyce here, maybe not as neutral as you would expect in the tone of their stuff. Now, I don't pay for the Times because I'm a sensible human, but I have seen quotes, extended quotes from that Joyce article, and I was thinking, okay, there's very much a tone to that, and there was very much a tone, I think, to an awful lot of the ex-pro stuff that was coming out, which, as a result, then was the main tenor of mainstream media outlets and the big sports outlets like that as well. I have noticed, though, with some of the local journalists, some of them, and with the majority of people on our channel, there's a sort of a very mixed bag. I think people are saying, don't air your dirty laundry, to use the phrase. It's not a very Liverpool thing to do. But I think everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people are very sympathetic as to why it might have gotten to that stage. So I wanted to drill into that with you a little bit, because I heard you and David talking about the actual things that he said. But to me, they're the fascinating parts of this puzzle, because like you said, we were kind of semi-aware that this contract was all about getting a fee for Mo in 2026. Whereas over the summer, we were talking about, wouldn't it be great if you could break all the records? Realistically, we were kind of half certain that he was going. Now it looks like he's teed himself up to be going after AFCON. That's now the new deadline. He's talking about the game against Brighton as if it's going to be his last one, talking about saying goodbye to the fans. So what did you make of the mystery statement of someone wants me out? What? Because everybody immediately goes, Arne Slot, the bad man. But I think, like you said earlier on in your show, he was quite separate in his comments about Slot. So is that someone... Laptop Mickey? Is it Pound Shop Brosnan? Who is it? Who's the mystery man?
I think that's it. It's pointed how you've got to be clear on that, people. He separated the Arne Slot comments, and Mo does things very deliberately. He's a super smart guy. We know this. He separated the Arne Slot bit from that big statement, which was obviously the biggest serialization of it all, wasn't it? I think some people will look for big conspiracy theories or a man behind the grassy knoll. I think if you just apply logic and what we know that Arne Slot is not in charge of transfers, isn't he? For want of a better phrase, at Liverpool. It's, of course he has a say, he has an input into it, zero doubt at all. But he doesn't make the ultimate calls. That's important to say. So then you have to look, well, who does make the calls? Who does Arne Slot report into? Richard Hughes. Who does Richard Hughes report into? Michael Edwards. And the biggest thing that, and of course, like everyone, we've been digging on this. Everyone's digging. Everyone's looking for stuff. It's the hardest stuff to get bits on, realistically. But the thing coming back unanimously from everyone across the board is Hughes and Edwards, there were zero sentimentality whatsoever. They are not sentiment. They will look, as we talk about, whether you like it or not, numbers, analysis, the hard data, the hard facts. You can argue, have they got it right with Mo Renewal? And I'm not going to be, derogatory about the Egyptian king in any way, but you've got question marks around the way they've done it and the way they've applied all this and, how they've linked up with Slot in this overall, I don't know, it's a decision or the point we find ourselves at now. But if someone tells me, oh, it's not them, oh, it's definitely not Hughes and Edwards he's talking about, well, it's not Arne Slot because he separated it. So it's not Hughes and Edwards. Who is it? Because I'll give you a clue. John Henry, and they're not that close to the detail as we know, are they, Trev? That's not how it works. So if it's not them, who could it possibly be?
I think people will waste a lot of energy in trying to work that out. But what's really interesting to me is something you alluded to earlier on, is the way they've chosen to approach this. It's like you're not suspended, but you're not traveling. I think it's a bit like that line in Pluribus, which I'm watching at the moment. It's like we just need our space right now, and it just feels all very. Really, is that where we're at? Was there not like, if you're going to do something, do it. Like suspend them for 3 games or something. Like actually, like have the courage of your convictions. As it is, and I think we're leading into our second topic for the day now. It has muddied the waters on not just Mo Salah's future. Let's be honest, because as we know, the man who's most under pressure on the back of all these disappointing results that keep lurching one after the other. And I've heard people talk about, the last 3 games and signs of improvement. And I could hear you and David doing your best to try and, weed some positives out of the mess. And fair play. Like, you have to do that. Of course you do. But it is just a really ugly situation at the moment, and a lot of us feel a little bit hopeless about it in terms of not seeing the signs that people are going out of their way to try and find over the last 3 games in particular. So with that in mind, Dave, the man who's really under most pressure is the manager, and we have a hell of an update, buddy.
Jesus Christ, I don't know where we're going to go into this. We're just going to dive in and see where it lands us. Honestly, this was a bit like, it was one of those, as you know, when you get it, you think this could just be BS. So ask around, and I'm just going to be honest with this, people. This is triple sourced, which we don't always get beyond the obvious stuff that comes out, and everyone breaks it from then, it's fine. So I think that the first place to start is the impact Mo Salah's statement has had might actually be adverse to what a lot of people are wanting. Because we did say it last week. We know Liverpool have been inquiring, speaking to other potential candidates. And of course they will. You can't go on a run like Arne Slot is and they're not going to do that. It would be absolute dereliction of duty from the suits not to do that. But one of the big things, I'm saying one of the big things we've got is, I don't think this is probably the biggest reveal by any means, but almost inadvertently, Mo Salah may have slightly strengthened Arne Slot's hand, in essence being that Hughes and Edwards are obviously the opposite of player power, and how they see it's very much, a structure within the club. If they are going to get rid of Arne Slot, and they don't want to do it, obviously, until it's absolutely untenable in their eyes, and it's based on results, Have we seen the briefing? Which is kind of funny because the results have been utter shite recently, but we'll steer away. We'll steer away from that just now. In terms of the results, they're very keen to have it. We've made this decision, not, Mo Salah and the players have dictated this, that they're not happy. So we've had to, pull the cord. They're not having that for 1 second. Using Edwards is the info we've got. So actually, because of that and the way this now has to play out with the Mo situation, the first real bit to stay is Mo Salah may have inadvertently made Arne Slot's position a bit tenable again, for want of a better phrase, and given him a bit of an extension. So that's probably the first bit, do you reckon, to start with?
Yeah, and just to go in on that for a second, because it is a thing that I wanted to talk to you about really briefly. How are you feeling? Because again and again, it's been emphasized that the two boys have, as you said, they have this detached way of looking at it. It was much hyped, the scientific, neutral approach. So that's one thing. And I think that could be admirable, and you can see how that works for us. But what do you make of all these kind of constantly sort of very thinly veiled references to the fact that the boys seem to be a little bit fragile in the ego department, whereas we couldn't have it seen to be player power? Who gives a shit if you're making the right decision, how it's perceived? Just make the decision. The idea that it would have extended Arne's period of time now where something could happen because of perception, I find that really pathetic, because that is, if there's any truth to that, then it is just purely ego driven, because you make the right decision, and regardless of what people think of you, if you think you're making the right decision, you just do it. You see where I'm going with this?
100%. And the funny thing is, they will rally against that, and the briefings will be against that, won't it? No, it's about results and all that. But it's like, I'm the same as you. It's absolutely right. If it's the right decision to get rid of him, whether it's the players don't respond to him anymore, whether it's results, or I think you can put strong, arguments in both camps, whichever. For me, I've said it before on pods, I can't start backtracking. It's untenable now for me. We've had a period of appalling football, appalling results. It's done for me. We should be pulling the plug before we even went to Milan, even earlier. Of course we should. But now that they haven't done that and that this has unfolded, it does throw a little bit of a how do they play it? And I genuinely am baffled a bit as to how this is all going to unravel, because everything's on the table.
Yeah.
Now, go on. Yeah.
You mentioned those senior players, and we're going to come back to them. But I think the thing that I want to dangle out there really quick here is a bit of absolute sort of, chewy goodness in terms of a story involving World Cup winning Spanish manager.
Jesus Christ. If you think you get messages before, we're about to get all sorts as well. And just before anyone attacks me for this, like you normally do on Twitter, my head is not fat. It's in proportion, thank you. It's big in every size, but I'll leave that with you for the comments. But anyway, yeah, a World Cup winning manager. So as we say this, everyone's going to go, they're talking about Alonso, aren't they? Because everyone knows Xabi Alonso. It's going badly at the Bernabeu, and he's under pressure. And if he loses to City, he's going to do it. And then everyone's going to go into, but guys, come on. He'll want a break after that. He probably won't want to go straight into the Liverpool thing. He might want to, have a break, take it pre-season. So then you get an interim, and people will want we could get Stevie as assistant, or Johnny Heitzinger as assistant, Stevie leading it. Carol and Caroline from the canteen can pick up set pieces and all this type of thing. And the conspiracy theories will abound, because you all think we're talking about Xabi Alonso. No. I think we're going to have to step into this now, aren't we? We're just going to have to rub off the Band-Aid, Trev, and just go for it, basically. Yep. So, yeah, people, genuinely, when I said triple source, because, sometimes we get some stuff. And I'll be honest, me and Trev have been sent bits. Sometimes it's been agent BS or certain things, but you try and dig, you try and verify. This is triple verified now. I can't think of another way of saying it. Oh, Richard Hughes has had discussions with Como head coach and investor Cesc Fabregas. The same Cesc Fabregas, the Spanish World Cup winning midfielder that played for Chelsea and Arsenal, of course, in the Premier League, and Barcelona, of course, probably maybe his famous big move back in the day. Now you're thinking, well, why are you talking about these clubs? Because as an investor and head coach, he's got a brilliant relationship with the setup there at Como, and he enjoys almost complete power. He's a part investor with Thierry Henry. Trev, part of the agreement they've got with Como, and it's almost an informal agreement, is that he's there, he's going to turn down offers. But if Chelsea, if Arsenal, if Barcelona were to come knocking, that's the kind of they know they're Cesc's clubs, quote, for want of a better phrase. So there'd be an understanding there. Never, probably I suspect, in anyone's, I say wildest dreams, but thought process, did anyone think Liverpool might be wanting to speak to Cesc Fabregas about the head coach job? I mean, go back a year if we were saying this, they'd say we were off our wedding cake, wouldn't they? Like, what are you talking about type of thing? But doing genuinely a bit of digging on this, they like a lot about Fabregas and very much see him as a possible long-term project. As in, yes, he's green, he's inexperienced a little bit about that, but they like the football he's playing. We're getting told the fact they like how he's getting certain amounts out of players. At Como, 6 in Serie A. I mean, for God's sake, he's getting goals and football out of Alberto Moreno, for God's sake, of all people. So all that goes into the mix. And obviously his passionate character, his bits, they do like a lot of that at the same time as well. Now, Salah, again, may have just put a bit of a fly in the ointment on this, because you can't necessarily start moving forward with that and have it all look as it does. That they've got to obviously play out that scenario, then got to decide with Arne Slot. So none of this is going to move quickly at all. But just being honest, people, our info is, and people are going to say, what about, I'm making it up now, but Glasner, Iraola and all that, don't have anything on them names. Not going to lie to you. Whether I think they might have or not, don't have anything. But what we have, Richard Hughes has sounded out Cesc Fabregas and Como about that possibility. It is a far from done deal. It is a far from easy deal to do. But it's telling that that's happening.
Like you said, just cue the absolutely uproarious no marks on Twitter coming at both of us individually with their various insults. I've had a few absolute buttes today, I'll tell you that. But it's very interesting stuff. And that story, by the way, apologies to everybody who sees me dabbing my nose. I'm as sick as a small hospital, but I am not missing this show. Let's put it this way, because there's too much on it. We do have another, I think, bit of a shocker for people as well. And again, you've had this stood up. It's apparently a source of contention, the state of play at the club amongst some of the senior players. And it's interesting that something has happened amongst those senior players in the wake of what happened with Mo. Would you walk people through it in just terms of what it is they're asking for, who it is they're asking to speak to, and what your theory on why is?
Yeah, just info that they've had stood up that senior players have asked for a meeting with Richard Hughes, being included Virgil van Dijk, Robbo, but also told Dominic Szoboszlai's in that mix, because very much, I think senior players are not stupid. They can see what's happening, can't they? They know the impact within the dressing room, and they'll know the impact from the fan base as well, those leaders within the club. Also, I mean, I'm trying not to be derogatory about journalists. Forget what journalists write about Mo Salah's relationship with players and whether that's close or he's detached or he's aloof and all that. Mo Salah has fantastic relationships, is our info, with players. Doesn't mean they're going around and playing chess or tiddlywinks every night, but that's not the same thing, is it? Come on, we're all grown adults here. But the big thing is, though, we want to speak to Richard Hughes about what's going on. And you wouldn't be, and this is theorising, this is the sort of moving into my theory bit. I suspect they've got something to say about the way they're being coached. the way they're being led and the fact we look completely uncoached at the moment and just, making it up. I suspect they've got stuff to say about that. So that's my, you asked me for my theory. That's a little bit of it. Whether that'll bear true, we don't know. Here's the other kicker that we've got. It's important to say that Dominic Szoboszlai is in that mix. Yeah. And part of the reason to say that is Liverpool and Richard Hughes specifically knew they wanted to renew Dominic Szoboszlai. So they've been very careful with how they've done this. Now, Dominic Szoboszlai, when he first came to Liverpool, Trev, it was very much him and his dad. That dad had a big say in everything. But the info we've got now is that, and obviously I don't know anything about, relationships, not my business, but that dad stepped away and it's Dominic Szoboszlai and his agent that are very much, the ones they've been talking to around this renewal and the early discussions about trying to get that done. Now, part of keeping Dominic Szoboszlai's agent and him on board, remember Armin Pesci, that goalkeeper that came across? Liverpool had options for a younger goalkeeper. He wasn't just the only one. They looked at a good few. But who's the agent for Armin Pesci? The same agent for Dominic Szoboszlai. Sometimes, like, people, you want to keep the agent sweet in football, as we know, as much as the player. It all links together. So that, that seemed smart at the time to do that decision, make that move. However, I don't even like getting this info. You could, but you understand it at the moment because look how well Dominic Szoboszlai is playing and look how badly Liverpool are doing and everyone else around him. Is Dominic Szoboszlai and his team clamouring to get that big renewal right now? Our info is there's just a little bit of let's see how this goes from a lot of the players. And you asked me it last week and someone put it in the chat panel. I can't remember the name, but do you remember they were saying about Champions League football and targets and what the thing would be? And we were quite honest to say, absolute fucking nuclear disaster for Liverpool if they don't get Champions League football. Do you honestly think a lot of these players, the way it's in, are thinking that, this is all rosy, I want to stay at this club? They're looking at the whole situation right now and saying, I want to see action or things happen before I commit anything long-term to Liverpool right now. So the reason I wanted to give you all that, people, is, yeah, we're all talking short-term, but even longer term, there's a lot at stake for Liverpool right now.
Thinking about how some of the current squad are going to process information that's coming in, thinking about the idea that several of them are looking to talk to Richard Hughes already, Dave, just by dint of the fact that that's a real thing that they're wanting to do. There's a change in the culture because you would never have had this under Klopp. Like the players would be talking to Klopp. That would be it. Now there's a clear delineation of duties and responsibilities and power that's different to what it used to be. And I don't see that could be anything other than divisive for the group were that meeting to go ahead. Even if it was looking to clear the air, I just don't see how it's anything other than, clarifying that there are all these different lines of approach to take now. And Arne Slot is not the man who you go to when you're upset. That's point number one. Point number two is, can you imagine how Alexander Isak and Florian Wirtz are feeling currently, having been sold whatever they were sold, to make these big, controversial and expensive moves, which have so far been tremendously underwhelming on the part of Wirtz for what he'd like to be doing, and almost a non-event on the part of Isak. If there is a managerial change, you would imagine that them and their agents are going to want to be part of any discussions as well, right? Because, and I don't know how this works, but I'd be amazed, knowing what I know about life in general, if that wasn't part of the conversation for them as well. It's like, well, we need to be okay that this guy is going to be favorable towards our guy. What like you can see, can't you? There's got to be a lot of knock-on stuff here.
100%. And with any system in football, pros and cons to it. And you're right, the pros are moving away from it is, we all know, and it's not being derogatory, Jurgen had too much power. Things have gone to waste a little bit with contracts. There was sentimental rather than football decisions. being made, as we know. So we wanted to move away from that. And we very much adopted almost a European model, as they say, haven't they? Where you've got a head coach, but you've got sporting director who oversees it all, and that feeds in very much a European style. So people are like, great, that's good. And there is positives to that. Of course there is, about the way we operate. But there are cons as well, as you see in European football. Because as you see with clubs that operate this model, Trev, as soon as players were unhappy with the head coach, they don't go to the head coach, do they? Because they don't need to go to the head coach either. They go to the people above him, and, you know, agents talk and dads talk, and we know how all that fits in. Now, whether it's like a president at Real or whether it's, like a Bayern style, as we see with sporting directors, although, funnily enough, the Bayern people won't shut up, whereas ours just doesn't speak at all, which is the opposite to the European model as well. There are real cons to this, and all of a sudden, you can get divisions quickly. That is what you see at European clubs. That is the big con. Because if the players ain't having that head coach, it doesn't enjoy an all-encompassing power like a Jurgen Klopp, doesn't it? Where it's like, nah, he's in charge. You go and sort that between you. So you will get divisions that fester quickly. And again, this is just another complication for Hughes, Edwards and the Suits, isn't it? Because the player feelings, the options there, the Salah situation, senior players knocking on their door, contract renewals that you want to do, and obviously the risk of not getting Champions League. And as you said, Wirtz, Isak, they didn't sign up to play Europa. Let's be clear on that. They know exactly what they signed up for. All this feels on the line a little bit at the moment, doesn't it? It's bad because it's us, but it's a perverse situation to almost watch, isn't it, unfold, and what they're going to do. I have no idea.
Now, it's the transfer show, and we've spoken for half an hour about the potential for our manager being transferred away, a manager who might be transferred in, our star player being transferred away. Let's bring it back to a little bit more hopeful stuff and talk about links to actual players coming in, regardless of who is overseeing the team in terms of week to week. The boys doing the business, as you've mentioned earlier on, are still going to be the boys doing the business. Let's start with right back options.
Yeah, literally. We said if you saw the last show, Liverpool were looking at right backs. That was our info. And we gave you a few names like Martin Fernandes. At Porto, we mentioned Javiro Reed at Feyenoord, who's also been watched by Bayern Munich as well at the same time. But we said to you that there is a name that is the top target, and we just can't quite, get that thing. And people said to me, well, next week will you tell us? And we're dropping messages in Discord. Simple thing is, again, had that doubly stood up, all great. Not trying to play Secret Squirrel, because if we were playing Secret Squirrel, I wouldn't have told you the freaking Cesc stuff, would we, to start with? But can't be allowed to get that name out there. But it's important to say Liverpool are looking at right backs. Reed, Fernandes, and others are right in the mix. And to be honest, Trev, can you blame him? Because look at it. I mean, Frimpong's still injured, isn't he, now? And obviously the talk of the formation bit and how he fits in there. Connor Bradley, back from injury. And he's played about 12 minutes, hasn't he? And another brain-dead yellow card as well. He can't stay fit. He makes brain-dead decisions. I don't disagree with this. Liverpool, for me, need a new starting right back. If you can solve that in January, which is, as we said, never straightforward, you do it.
Yeah. You could say that they needed it in the summer as well. And the Frimpong was never going to be the answer unless you were going to change the system, which we didn't do. So it's all very weird. And I think there is a disjointedness between the recruitment, where people are saying this guy is good because of X, Y, and Z reason. Yeah. And you've got a manager saying, well, how do I make him work for me? I don't like that level of disjointedness. And it appears to be the case, because otherwise you'd imagine we'd have seen at least once this season what the new thing was supposed to look like. We haven't seen it. No. There is another name, though, that people have been throwing about, and that's Yann Diomande. Might be new to some people. Talk to us about him.
Yeah, very much a player that keeps getting linked from various sources. I mean, this is a special talent. I think they know that. And he's got the Red Bull link, so that makes it easy to link him to Liverpool at the same time. But almost come through the US collegiate system or the high school system, I think. Like, an absolutely flying for only just 19. Scored a hat-trick in the Bundesliga at the weekend as well. Second fastest player in the Bundesliga this season. So all the raw stuff there, isn't it, in terms of your flying wingers, beats a man, take-ons, dribbles, carries, all the things we like, all the things that will probably suit an Alexander Isak, and maybe just a little bit better than Jacob Murphy, with the greatest respect as well. That was a famous lie recently. The thing is, just doing a bit of digging on this, the Liverpool like this kid. It's nothing special to say, yeah, of course they do. If they watched him, yeah, they've had scouts there as well. Just doing real digging on this, though. Maybe let's just say agents are very good at trying to fan flames and engineer things now and put stuff out there. Just to be clear on this, though, Ekatike's agency weren't too shy at doing that, were they? And look how that worked out for him in the end as well, by, being clear that they like Liverpool and that was an option. So you never know. And the problem is, when you say this, people will go in, well, if Salah's off in January, this is the kid, isn't it? But it's far from straightforward on that. I'd just say that Liverpool watching the kid, yeah, absolutely. But agency talk might just be driving this, let's say, at the same time for a more immediate transfer.
Yeah, and I think that's a really vital part of the story. And I like that you say that. And I hope, all messing aside, like I think the majority of our listeners and viewers are always appreciative of the fact that you are going out of your way to say, this is what I've been told. I can't do anything other than that. And then, I think you have to be a certain level of simpleton to not understand that. But they are out there in their droves. God bless them. We do have at least one more defender link, and I think one that's causing a lot of eyebrows to be raised in a very positive way is the Jacquet stories. A lot of people quite high on this kid.
Yeah, we mentioned him before, haven't we? We mentioned him again a good few weeks ago. And Sasha Tablieri had the story, didn't he? So that was from earlier this morning, that Liverpool are looking at Jacquet and heavily as a replacement for Ibou Konate. I mean, Christ, you can think of a number of replacements for Ibou Konate, the way he's playing at the moment. But that aside, yeah, we've said before, Liverpool like this kid. They have looked at him a lot, and even for January. As we mentioned before as well, this might be a price where Liverpool will deal. The big thing about Jacquet is, again, as we said before, a lot of big European clubs like this. They do think this could be a boy that really kicks on, because when we looked at him in the summer, we have to be honest, as we said before, they plumped for Leone, didn't he? He was the kid that they thought, this is the top European talent we want. He's ahead in the rankings. That's who we go for. But since then, Jacquet has really shone at Rennes. He's really an option I think Liverpool were looking at. And if you've seen any of his stats, and me and Bart's are going to run him again because of the uptrend in everything, defend space well, pacey, absolute beast in the air as well at the same time. All things Liverpool could probably do with a little bit, even if you were, even now, going to tweak the formation. And if you think of his age, the ceiling, as they're saying, looks absolutely massive for this kid. I don't think it would be a surprise whatsoever if this was one of the ones Liverpool made a move for. But again, it's going to come down to January, as we said. Price. Who else is in the mix? Because Liverpool have a price and they will not move for it. They never get involved in bidding wars. Either the player wants it at the price or doesn't. End of story for them. But no real surprise. Jacquet is one to keep an eye on all the way through January.
So Martin Fernandez and a preferred option at right back that we are aware of existing, but not 100% who it is. Jacquet, very much a focus of attention. Diomande also, but like you said, could be a little bit fanciful, might be just agent talk. I think everybody's optimistic that something will happen by way of transfers in January, Dave. And like, obviously the defense is the area that we seem to really need it in at the moment. But I think if you had given me my pick as the season was starting, to get one more person into one area. I'd have always gone and plugged in someone in the area that we've been looking to address for several seasons in a row. And that would be in defensive midfield, sort of a playmaker, a screener, that kind of character.
Yeah.
But the names that we have been linked with, Wharton, Anderson, Baliba, these are names that everybody wants to be linked with. Yeah. And to go back to our angle from last week, and that you've just brought up again this week, as we become less and less palatable as an option in comparison with some of those names, we get further and further away from the likelihood of nailing down one of those names. This is a distinctly unpleasant reality that we have to live with at the moment, and it's a consequence of the huge falling off of form. And it's a consequence of the uncertainty going forward. And it could be a consequence of where we might underperform tremendously this year and therefore talk ourselves or work ourselves away from one of those big names. Like City, Arsenal, even United, who can always throw money at something. They're all interested in those guys. Now, I am not being a defeatist about this. This is Liverpool Football Club. It's just that we're not really acting very much like Liverpool Football Club at the moment, on the field, off the field, in the way that we've been approaching certain things. So how confident are you that anything at all is going to happen around the midfield? And is there any name there that, like, I haven't heard about that could be more likely, that's maybe down the pecking order a bit in terms of like an up-and-comer, like the equivalent of a Diomande in the midfield that we don't know about?
It's so tough with this because it's no secret. Adam Wharton, Elliot Anderson, Carlos Baleba, they've been linked with Liverpool. Yes, they're all very different profiles. They all bring a certain skill set that would help us in different ways. But the big thing that unites all three of those is the chances of them moving in January are minuscule. And if they did, it would take immense money, probably well over what Liverpool would be prepared to pay. Because, of course, those clubs would lump a premium on them. Why wouldn't they, to start with? I mean, Forest, you look where they are in the league. They're going to want mega money to let Elliot Anderson go. Quite rightly as well, homegrown. Carlos Baleba, well, you're dealing with Brighton for a start there, aren't you? And, you know, Bloom, Barber, the difficulty there. Adam Wharton as well. Now, I don't know if anyone clocked this, but Adam Wharton's agent went on TalkSport and he kind of gave us all the clues. And it was because he was asked, like, he said it purposely to get questioned further on it, to go, well, Adam and us, we, you know, as a team, we've clearly got a plan. And the guy went, you know, as though it was all like just off the cuff. A plan? You have a plan, do you? Type of thing. And it's like, yeah, we've got a plan. And he spelled it out to say, Adam knows what he wants to do. He's happy at Palace. He loves Palace, blah, blah, blah. If he leaves, he wants it to be for a Champions League club. Now, that was what Adam Wharton's agent said. If we're not in the Champions League, the chances of getting Adam Wharton fall off a cliff, literally. Just be clear on that, you know. So that's the first thing to consider. Again, January just isn't really a goer for any of these because you've got a couple of those players expecting to be in England's World Cup squad and wanting to be in there. They're going to want to be settled. They're not going to make a move unless they have to, and they're not going to want to. Plus, let's be honest, you know, we have to look at this objectively. Some of those players are probably looking and thinking, Liverpool, is that the best move right now with everything that's going on? And, you know, so that would feed into the mix. Then, like you said, Trev, make zero mistake about this. United have spoken to all three of those players. City have spoken to two of them in Wharton and Anderson. If anyone's under the impression that we're the only ones and we're just going to cherry pick, not a chance at all. So it's great. I would honestly, for different reasons, because they're all different profiles, so it's difficult to compare them. I would love any of these three to rock up at Anfield in January. It'd be brilliant if we got an Adam Wharton for progression. Anderson, who does it all a little bit, doesn't he? As you said, that screener moves it. You see where he is. You watch him. I mean, he bullied our midfield, didn't he, about 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was, when they came to Anfield. Baleba, even just because some of our players are a bit pussy, really, aren't they, in the middle at times as well? So just some physicality and that balance there could still be really important. But the chances in January are small. The chances, if we're not in the Champions League, get them down further for the summer. Like Adam Warren, if we're not in the Champions League, forget it for the summer. Forget it, literally. And like you said, maybe it's the cheaper alternatives. Lille have been very smart with what they've done, because Lille, we mentioned before, didn't we? Bouardi, the youngster there, everyone's, as we said, been chasing this kid. Lille have been very smart. They have overpaid what they wanted to him in wages, but it's a smart move, because they're like, nah, just overpay him in wages now, because we'll make this back when we sell him for an absolute fortune, won't we? It's a smart asset protection move. So that's pretty much off the table there as well. Ederson, we mentioned before, didn't we? But again, there's other clubs looking there, because even the likes of United have spoken to Ederson's people, because, you know, their financial problems are well known, aren't they? They might not get Champions League. So that might take a Wharton, Anderson out of their reach as well. And you're thinking, why are you setting all this out? Because we've talked about this before, Trev. How many people are like, go and get Anderson, go and get Wharton, go and get Belieber? If I thought we could do it, I'd be outside the offices in London and Liverpool banging the drum, going, get it done, get it done, get it done. Of course I would. But the chances, when you put it all in context, I don't think they're anything like people maybe comprehend them to be.
What's increasingly apparent as the weeks go on is that people's understanding of the club, their belief in the reality of what Liverpool is, there's a wild discrepancy between the reality they perceive, I perceive, other people perceive. And we're looking at a situation now which we have to be honest about. We are a bit of a basket case and therefore not very palatable as an option to a lot of people because of that. Agents will say to their player, wait and see what happens there, because we won't know who's in situ. And so I think that's already made a balls of January for us, unless we are 100% backing slot, which is what an awful lot of people will be screaming at this device that they're watching this on. You know, what are you doing talking about? It's not the Liverpool way, etc., etc. Whatever. People are going to say whatever they're going to say, and I prefer to live in reality rather than some sort of conceptual version of it. I just think we're in a really, really hamstrung scenario now because of the story that we led with, because of the two stories that we led with, and then the third story that we went to. When you have a manager whose situation is not clear, when you have a star player who looks like he's about to end his time in the club, you have senior players meeting en masse with the sporting director. Dave, it's a basket case.
It is, and it then depends on which player you want to target, because you will still be able to get players, of course, because you're Liverpool and the money and the allure of, no doubt about it at all. And people like we've mentioned before, like an Ordonez or a Jacquet, with the greatest respect, of course they're going to leave Bruges. Of course they're going to leave Rennes to get a bigger wage and play in the champion. You know, I know Ordonez plays in the Champions League, but a bigger profile of club, the Premier League and all that. Of course, those types of players would make the move. But the difficulty then comes if other clubs and big names go in for them, other clubs who are more certain and stabilised is the right word, more certain of Champions League in the future. That all comes into the mix. It all really stems down to what are two guys maybe going to do, doesn't it, in the next month or so? What are Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards going to do about the Mo Salah situation? What are Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards going to do about the Arne Slot situation? And honestly, we just can't call it either way. Say everything's on the table, like we said before. We are not going to be surprised now, and it's almost blasphemous to say this, but you are not surprised, and neither am I, if we get to the end of January and neither of those two people are at the football club. That's not a surprise anymore. You can't say that at all. It's a feasible possibility. It's also feasible that they're both still at the football club and we're kicking the can down the road, aren't we, a little bit, because of AFCON and everything else as well. But this sounds like a cop-out, but it's just being honest. I don't know what's going to happen, because No one saw an interview like that on Saturday coming out, did they? I know people say he's not going to be happy on the bench, but no one saw that. No one saw this chain of events. No one saw he's not disciplinary, but he's left out, like you said. We just need a bit of space all of a sudden. So what is going to happen next? At which point does it become untenable with Arne Slot? At which point does it become untenable with Arne Slot, but on their terms, not on the players' terms as well? At which point then do you try and speak to Como about a Spanish World Cup winner? Is there another Spanish World Cup winner available because of what's happening in Real as well? We have a spotlight on us for all the wrong reasons. I mean, we usually talk this way about other clubs, and the sadness to me in this whole pod is there's elements we've been talking about, let's be honest, Trev, that we've mocked other clubs for doing as well.
Yes.
And it's provided us entertainment on this pod. We have to be honest. We, unfortunately, might just be others' entertainment a little bit at the moment.
David Lynch was honest enough to say earlier on the show with you that, like, this is great stuff for a journalist, but for a fan, and he was admitting the same, for a fan, it's awful. Like you said, we are that club that we laugh. We're Chelsea at the moment. In a weird way, we are a little bit of a clown show. And what I'm going to choose to lean into here to finish is the idea of some sort of status quo. Because you know what the most revealing thing for me is? Again and again, the quote is, Slot's future will be dependent on results. It has been for weeks. The results are shite. So if that is going to keep going on, I get the feeling, Dave, that nothing's going to happen. So let's just throw a hypothetical out there. Maybe something happens with Mo, maybe it doesn't. But Mo has kind of ploughing his own furrow now, and may well have made his own decision in terms of speaking out in the way that he did. It might be the simplest thing for all concerned if he goes a separate way, which I think is terrible. And the fact that he won't get a proper send-off, etc., etc. But let's leave that on the shelf for a minute, because there's nothing we can do about that. And let's assume that Arne Slot gets further time going forward, whether people like that or not. Do you see a world in which an Ederson and a Jacquet, those two signings, like a promising defender and a solid citizen midfielder, could actually be enough to get us over the line to rescue this situation with this manager, a bit of a reboot in January? What do you think?
In the very specific confines of that question, could they be enough to get us over the line? Yes, because this league is appalling at the moment. Think how bad Liverpool have been. They're 2 points off fourth. That's how bad this league is as a whole at the moment, and other contenders. So that keeps them in the mix. Under this manager, though, no, just being honest. It's like you said, it comes back to it. It's based on results. I think we won 4 in the last 15. We took 5 from the you've watched this football for a while. We are playing mid-table contained football, and we're still shipping 3 at Leeds. You look at the individual performances. I think it goes back to the point that you made on the other pod. Sometimes when you've got loads of problems, you've only really got one problem. And I think it falls at the feet. And actually, whether it's fully true or not, if they were to swing the hammer on Arne Slot, you can bury a lot of the problems there, can't you, as well, realistically, and say it was the manager, and unite people in a strange way. That's happened before. We know how that bounce can work. But like you said, I mean, honestly, I'm tired of using the word untenable. It's been untenable for me for weeks. But it's not, is it? It's not for them. So I can't tell you where the line is. I just can't.
Yeah, it continues to be very much tenable, like you said, and we are in the dark. We just keep reading the quote in an Ornstein piece or a Joyce piece, talking about how Arne's future will be dependent upon results, which continue to stink the place out. I have to give credit to people who over the last couple of weeks, week or so, have tried to see a pattern of improvement in the 3 games where we haven't been beaten. Again, poor old David earlier on trying to say, we try to set ourselves up to not concede goals, and then you just remember that he's talking about the game in which we conceded 3. So it doesn't really work, does it, Dave? You know what I mean? It just doesn't really work. I feel like we should probably start wrapping it up, because there is a world in which the next time we do this show, we're talking about new Liverpool manager, Cesc Fabregas. Like, Dave, it's a wild world.
The only thing I wanted to say was, because it was in that press conference when, he's trying to bare his teeth a little bit. And I get why he's doing this. But Arne Slot saying, usually I'm calm and polite, but I am not weak. And I get why he's doing that. And I wouldn't necessarily describe him as a weak individual, despite what I'm seeing from his team. But when the press briefing is that Richard Hughes has ultimately made the call that Mo Salah is not on that plane, it doesn't make you look strong, does it?
Well, that's exactly it. And that is the manufactured opinion that has been put out there. That is the new perception of the club, is that Arne Slot is a little bit of a lame duck. Whether they really want that or not, whether they actually do really want to back him, like I said to you earlier on, the Klopp era is the one that people still identify with and understand. They don't understand this new era yet. And therefore that, like I say, delineation of duties, it's not clear to people. People who are like, boomer generation, they just don't get it. It wasn't like this in Shanks' time. People like who are in the middle, Gen X heads like me, are going like, it seems a bit weird. Like, if you're the gaffer, you're the gaffer. And, people who are into modern football and love all the science boys and love all the as we call them, the nerds running the place, they back them 100%, and they can do no wrong. But the reality is, Dave, I don't think any of us really have the full picture. It doesn't look good for Arne. It doesn't look good for the Mo situation at the moment. I think there's a real world in which, like you said earlier on, we may be looking at a future without either of them as part of the club. I don't think anyone's happy about that. I can't be happy about that. No. But I want to leave the last word with yourself. You've got some Arne quotes there to give us our penultimate wrap up. But just in terms of general transfer show wrap up, is there anything you want to just lay on the table before we leave?
I actually almost can't believe we're in this position that almost we are getting material galore now for our transfer show. And it's almost material you don't want, isn't it? Because we'd rather be talking about, do you know what? We're 15 points clear at the top of the league. All the new signings were firing. We don't need to do anything. Like, let's have a laugh at what everyone else is trying to do and desperately scramble for. That's what we were hoping for. But that is just a million miles from the right reality of where we are. You have to face into that. And I mean, they say on a slot saying I'm not weak, but just, and it's not a dig at him, but what this situation and what's been briefed is coming out. He's even honest tonight when he's saying, because people asked him, and I get why they ask him about, what's Mo meaning? He said, well, you have to speak to Mo. And, I don't get involved in those types of things because he doesn't. And he said, it's a short reaction from Mo. Well, what are we expecting? Because he gave a massive interview. He hasn't really got much more to say. I suppose then trying to look at positive. Alisson's interview, or, and I've not seen the full bits from Alisson, but people saying like, he was graceful. It's typical Alisson. He fronts it well. He represents, talks about the team and all that. And I've no doubt about that. And we all adore the man. But then we've also talked about what might happen with him in the future as well. And you do wonder what he's thinking about his future with everything that's going on as well. We love a modern reference. We've had The Godfather. We've had JFK the other week. I'm going to leave this with a GIF, Trev. And there's that GIF where little Elmo is stood with his arms like this and the fire is just blazing from behind him. And that would probably be a fair representation of where we are right now.
One of my favorite GIFs, and for the record.
There we are.
Oh, look, bring it on, Dave. Let's just lurch into next. I'm going to fully embrace the drama at this stage. I can't be precious about it anymore. There are too many people who are living in their own lands of sanctimony and what I can and I can't say and what's allowable for you to say and me to say. Screw it all. We'll just keep bringing you the stories that we get. Dave gets a lot of stories, so we are lucky to have them here. We will be back next week. You know that. We may even be back tomorrow. You know that too. But keep an eye on this space on this channel. Thanks to Dave as ever. I've been Trev.